Disclaimer. I am a law student, and the legal information provided is not legal advice. For that, please hire an attorney. So, Xanderhal and Korviday. This was, a bit of a... It's been a lot, right? It's been a lot. I'm going to give you sort of my initial thoughts right now, because I want to preface everything with just saying this, right? For me, whenever I am engaging with, debates between creators who I like, ultimately the place where I'm trying to come down on, I'm trying to mediate, right? I'm trying to make everyone friendly. I'm trying to get over the drama. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not a fan of drama. Other people might love drama and that's all well and good. I'm not a fan of drama. Again, there are so many things that make me very boring as a content creator, right? I'm not a sexy, anarchist or whatever. I'm not I probably identify more like a sockdem or something like that. I probably, there are plenty of things which make me just a very boring, sort of leftist YouTube personality. And this is definitely one of them, right? I'm a pragmatist. I want to make sure that people who are advocating for left-leaning policies or platforms are ultimately, to the best of their ability, getting along, right? And I see a lot of what's been happening as very sort of, I don't want to say childish, but we'll get into that. As far as I can tell, there have been sort of two major arguments on both sides, right? They both kind of cut against each creator, and so I'll address them accordingly, right? I'm lawful good. I wouldn't say I'm lawful good. I would not say I'm lawful good, because lawful good is abiding by the current laws of, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you want to define it, right? I would probably call myself more neutral good, right? As opposed to chaotic good. But anyway. So I think that people who watched, the debate unfold, it was interesting, right? It was very interesting for me. I'm not going to pull it up because, I remember it well enough, and, people can always go back and fact check, and I invite people to, and if I say something wrong, then people can feel free to correct me. In the debate, I think that they were both going in with very different expectations, or rather, they had very different plans of attack for how to conduct themselves. Korviday, or actually, I'll start with Xanderhal. Xanderhal went in with this expectation, right? This expectation that he was going to be able to confront this person who he would define as a woke scold, who has been accusing him of all of these various things on Twitter, right? Whether it was having a sex cult and some of these things Korviday will dispute having ever said, and I acknowledge that, so I don't want people to assume me saying this is an admission of that fact to be true. I'm just talking about from Xanderhal's perspective. And Xanderhal, expected to basically be able to confront all of these different allegations and be hey, that's not true, or hey, you're misrepresenting me, or hey, this is a drastic reduction of my argument, right? That's not what happened. What happened was that Korviday went in and focused very, very specifically on the idea of using ableist language, right? And whether or not that's good practice for us as leftist content creators, right? So, that was hard for Xanderhal to deal with, I think. Throughout a lot of the debate, Korviday, and I'm not saying that one necessarily destroyed the other. I know that Korviday posted on Twitter saying that they did, or that they did destroy Xanderhal, which I'll talk about in a second. But Korviday's arguments were very strong, right? And at the end of the day, I feel like they suck very well. Actually, you know what? I'll pull this up. I'll see if I can find it real quick. Because the visual aspect of what happened is more important, I think, than just saying it. And just hold on for a second. If I need to clip the video when I re-upload it, just like fast forward to like when it cuts in the video, then I will. But this is probably important.
As well. That's the other topic.
Oh, am I already here? Hold on. I might already sort of be at this point. This might be it. This might be it.
Building politics, I guess. I'm just arguing that, pragmatically speaking, like, if you want someone to take your criticism, especially a creator, it's probably best to convey it in a way that doesn't seem like it's bad faith. I completely agree with, like, the message behind what you're saying. It's just, I'm talking more about, like, pragmatic, like...
Oh, there was also the fact that someone else named, like, I can't remember who it was, but there was someone who, like, named themselves Xanderhal in this, right? Like, someone who named themselves Xanderhal, like, in his stream chat and began, like, posting, like, troll to whatever. That was fucking terrible. All right. I just want to put out that, like, that's absolutely fucking horrible. And I don't know who this person is, but, like, that is admonishable. All right. Like, that is, you're literally trying to throw a monkey wrench into people trying to hash out their, like, their individual grievances with one another. That is fucking terrible. I do not have a high opinion of you.
If we're actually trying to get someone to take criticism and internalize it.
Absolutely. And as I've said, I think that some people aren't even trying to get you to take criticism, they just hate you. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's not criticism, that's just insulting somebody.
I think, you know, it started, you know, it doesn't just, people don't just hate people like, do you know what I mean? Like, people don't just come out of the woodwork like,
I mean,
this guy. Like, it starts with something, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and then they call you a woke, you know, you call them a woke scum cunt or whatever on Twitter, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and then you start going.
It's to crush the person that he's debating, so the spectators, the audience are like, okay, that guy's an idiot, I'm gonna come over to this side, right? That's...
So I've always, you know, I heard that. And the thing is that I think that could apply to the...
Done this before. You know, media, like, I don't think that's really right. The idea was that these are people that say that they're fighting for social justice, and it's a little thing.
Case.
Where is it? You'll notice I'm specifically looking for something in the chat.
It's used in a dismissive manner, especially when it's used, you know, as a kind of interchangeable one with woke scold. It just depends, isn't it? The soft lefties are the ones that agree with you, but who are soft. The woke scolds are the other ones of that same category, but...
The barrage, they may not go after you because they don't know, but any time the deer girl comes up as a conversation, you're gonna see your favorite streamer's chat filling up with transphobia and bigotry. I feel like, yeah, whatever, like, if you guys know what tweet I'm talking about, then you guys...
Vegan, non-binary, something.
Well, there's 3 reasons that I'll block people on Twitter, right? If they're filling up my mentions with things...
Let's, we've spoken quite a lot.
Whenever I do that, my chats are reeing at me.
Oh.
Like I said before, whenever I change my rhetorical strategy, it follows an off-screen, off-stream reconsideration of my rhetorical strategy.
Okay,
sometimes
so
I make
maybe
big changes like that.
Stream?
Maybe. It depends if you make enough point for me to mull over.
Okay. So this is the point I wanted to get to. All right, this is the point I wanted to get to. So thank you for sticking with me. Right now, what they are talking about are, like, this is the argument that Korviday made to the viability of using ableist rhetoric, right? Now, what I want people to focus on specifically is the chat at this point, right? Right now, like, this is his, like, is Xanderhal's chat specifically reacting to him trying to defend the use of something like the R slur, right? Like, I want to just let this play a little bit and see what happens, because I definitely took note of it. But pay attention right here to things like, Xanderhal, this isn't good. Xanderhal, your takes today are quite cringe. Lots of this. Pay attention to that.
I did that whenever Salty Ace made a video about me saying that women are thick and how that's objectification. So it's possible. It just seems like when
Just
I
don't
see
do
tweets
it.
on Twitter, it's things
Okay,
like
this is actually going really bad.
Like,
okay, that's actually... I didn't catch that. That's actually the bad Xanderhal. Do not pay attention to that.
Manipulative, abusive liar, things like that.
I said that you're a liar because you have lied about me. You inferred on a stream that I compared your logo to a swastika, which has never happened.
Oh no, that was a friend of yours. I apologize. That was
Friend of mine?
Xanderhal chills.
I think their name was Black Magic Bimbo. You were in the same thread. So yeah,
I don't know who that is. I'm not friends with these people.
Sure.
Xanderhal, stop. I will say that there's actually, I'm noticing this now for the first time, a lot of these names that are saying this are gray, or at least there's a couple of them. Maybe they're trolling, but there are also people who are subscribed to him who are otherwise making the same criticism.
believe that you think I've got this woke scold HQ over here. Dude, no, I don't. I
Okay.
promise you. Like,
All right. I got you. Yeah, the
Xander,
people
don't
that
fuck
behave
this
like you
up
on Twitter tend
more.
to sort of mold together. You seem way more reasonable in person than you do on Twitter. You've admitted yourself that you're a bit salty on Twitter.
I am, but that's my internal debate, bro. I thought you'd be up for that. I thought you'd be up for the salt. I threw it at you and you blocked me.
Xanderhall,
Well, I don't think
Xan, this is
accusing me of things
cringe.
that aren't true
You're being
is
cringe today,
debate, bro. You said
Xanderhall.
that you were defending thought slides. saying I
Xanderhall
had a
using
sex thing.
capital
Right,
I to
right,
replace
I'm not
L,
gonna
delete.
have
Oh no!
Fuck.
Wait, we're not going to talk.
I
I know what you said about said Chud logic. I'm not going to bring up the person who made the accusation, but I will say.
Xanderhall,
thought slides-
reconsider the ableist language. Xanderhall, stop, babe.
No, you
Korviday
made
is
a
doing
damning
great
accusation on Twitter
rhetorically.
that I think is
I
probably pressing to
deleted it. I
discuss.
deleted it. I
You deleted it?
apologized to the person. Yes, I have.
All
I deleted
right.
it. I apologized to the person involved, and I think.
Okay. That basically got what I wanted to. Otherwise, essentially the rest of the argument can be boiled down to this, right? Because I understand where both parties are coming from. I get that, because I think that something that a lot of people argue and that isn't really as effective is whether or not the ableist language is harmful to people, like a harmful kind of rhetoric to employ. I actually think that both parties sort of get this idea, right? Like, I feel like both parties like sort of understand that there is like an implicit harm to some degree that is that comes into play when you use ableist language as a way to platform yourself, right? I think that both of them sort of get this. What I think they differ on is essentially in a cost-benefit analysis, when you measure the two things against each other, the harm of using that language versus the utility or benefit of using it, I think that's where the more important distinction is. Because I think that Xanderhall, and again, for me, I'll just say that my personal position on this is to not use that language out of principle. I don't. And so like when people, so I will make the caveat here that if someone asks me like about my position on Xanderhall using ableist language and they're like, hey, do you agree with that? I'll be like, no, fuck not. Like, absolutely not. I don't agree with it. I'll never do that. That's something that is indefensible, right? I'm not talking necessarily about whether or not it's defendable because that conversation has been had into the dirt. What I'm talking about more is about how to convince Xanderhall to not use it, because I think that the conversation that a lot of people have been having is just goes to like the first question of whether or not it's something which is harmful to to like disabled or marginalized people. And I think that we're all on the same page on that. It's more a question about whether or not the utility of using that sort of language outweighs the possible costs of it. And that's what I want to talk about specifically. I think that the best evidence to go against this is Xanderhall's own chat, right? As I was watching this, that was something that I noticed immediately. His fans don't like this content. His fans don't like it. And I understand that. And Xanderhall, if you watch, and like if you come on later, I would love to talk about this more specifically, because this is a conversation that we probably need to have. And mind you, this is sort of like right now, I understand that you have criticisms of Korviday and how they've handled themselves, and that's sort of separate, and I'm putting that on the shelf because I want to focus on this for the moment. I don't think that there's that much benefit to use this sort of language. And I understand that you have it sort of construed in your mind that there is a benefit to it. Like, I get that's where you're coming from, but just based on your own audience, like, they don't agree with this. And I understand that, like, yeah, this is very similar to the rhetoric that Destiny uses. And I understand that Vosh says this as well, right? But that doesn't make it right. And that doesn't mean that people who watch you are going to want the same things that they want from them. Clearly, you're going to have a different audience from Destiny. And you do have a different audience from Vosh. For as similar as you are in a lot of respects, you are different. And this is a way where, honestly, you could probably be different for the better. One thing I really want to wonder about, because usually you make the argument, you made the argument here, right? Wait, Xanderhall already conceded? Okay, then yeah. If he already conceded to this, if he's already not doing this, I watched a little bit about his reconsideration video. If he's not going to do that, then great. Maybe this might all be a moot point then. This might all very well be a moot point. But just my first thought about whether or not it's useful. And again, like if he's already conceded this, then I guess that this is sort of like a meaningless, like this is in the law, we would call it dicta, right? It's part of an opinion that ultimately doesn't matter, but I think it's important for including because damn it, I thought about it. So I want to include it here. And really, if it doesn't apply to Xanderhal, it could apply to someone like Vosh, per se. So Vosh, if you want this, consider it. I would love to see like a Twitter poll for how, like, just to see the raw numbers of how many people who follow you actually followed you specifically, very, very specifically, about whether or, like, by virtue of the fact of whether or not you said the R slur in like a stream or a video. I would be really interested in that, because my first gut feeling, right, and this is an argument I made before, right? Hold on, I need to read this because this is interesting. He said he did with the follow-up video. He said he did consider talking to Korviday after the stream, but from what I can remember, Korviday left Xanderhal and Reed, and something happened on Twitter. Yeah, all right, I did see that. So then I'll put a pin on this, all right? If Xanderhal is still like muddling around with this idea a little bit, like this is something I think is good to consider, and we'll talk about Korviday in a second. I would really like to see a poll on Twitter to the effect of how many people who follow them actually followed them specifically because they said like the R slur in a stream, right? Or in a video or whatever. Because my intuition, my gut feeling is that honestly, this is something which matters a lot less in the grand scheme of things, and something which might actually prevent him from getting more people to follow him than not. When people begin to follow more leftist content creators, usually that comes with a recognition that there are certain types of speech which are implicitly harmful to people online, right? This is probably the difference between someone who identifies as like a classical liberal, who think that platforming any idea is fine as long as for intellectual discussion, versus someone who's more leftist, where we realize that like actually platforming certain ideas does carry an inherent risk of harming certain marginalized groups, especially if done sloppily and especially if not challenged, right? This is something that I think I see in a lot, like in myself and a lot of my audience, right? Y'all are good people. Good job on being good people. But specifically, I want to just consider the idea that people might have gone to start watch someone like Xanderhal, and maybe they do have an edgy leaning, and maybe, they very well might still have like a very edgy gamer bro sort of vibe about them, right? But it's not necessarily because he said like one word in one video about like one topic, right? And this isn't me trying to like police people, right? Mind you, I'm not trying to come on this as like the free speech police, right? I'm just talking pragmatically from a strategy, from a pure cost benefit perspective. Is it really, like, considering all the harm that using that rhetoric sort of does, considering all the harm that it does, is it really worth the maybe few couple people you might get for using a word? I don't think so. I really don't. And that's why, now mind you, that might change. Like, let's say that, Xanderhal posted like a Twitter poll, and like an overwhelming majority of his followers were like, yeah, we followed him specifically, very specifically, because he said the R slur in one of his videos or streams. That might be a different story. I still wouldn't condone it, but I would be able to see better where he's coming from. Oh, hey, Xan, what's up? I'll bring you in a second, actually. But I'll finish this point, and if you want, we can go over it in a second. If you want to, go ahead and join my, what's it called? The waiting room in my Discord, and I'll bring you in. But for me, the most important thing is sort of considering utility, right? Utility versus harm, and I think that you don't need it. I won't say any more, because I'll go ahead and I'll wait to bring you in so that we can continue the discussion. Because, I mean, it feels weird talking about, like, everything that happened with you, like, not being here, right? So, yeah. In other ways, yeah, the chat is just, like, all, hey, Xanderhal. Of course it is. Which is cool. I love having guests on here. It's, like, it's a great thing. That's not the real Xanderhal. I'm reasonably sure it is. He has, like, the symbol and everything. That would be pretty funny, though. That'd actually be, like, pretty fucking hilarious. Hey, what's up, Xan?
Oh, hey. Yeah, I just woke up about 2 minutes ago, so if my voice sounds a little weird, a little nasally or something, I got that morning congestion, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. Wait a second, hold on. It's like, you're in the same time zone as me, right?
Yes, I did wake up at 5:30 in the afternoon.
Holy shit. I mean, like, hey, no judgment. I've totally done that before, but like, that might be kind of a problem. Are you all right? Are you doing fine?
Oh no, I'm okay. I slept in quite a bit because I stayed up really late making a video, and we can actually get into that in a little bit because I think it is kind of relevant to the Korviday thing, but only if you're down to talk about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I'm totally cool to talk about it. So did you watch? I was talking a little bit about my, like, sort of my initial thoughts on sort of everything that happened between you and Korviday. So did you have a chance to watch any of that?
No, I actually just got here. I noticed that you had DM'd me, and I was like, holy shit, I forgot I was supposed to go on Riley's stream today. Then I saw it was only 14 minutes ago when you had messaged me. I was like, okay, we're good. Okay. I'll just be a little late.
No, you're all good. You're all good. And I managed to. No, I'm noticing that it can just be and like it's nothing against like you or anyone. It can just be like a little risky, like planning to have a guest on at a very specific time, right? Because shit happens, and like stuff happens in people's lives, and but it's whatever. Like it's all good. So essentially, what I was sort of talking about was I'll give you sort of like my initial sort of gleaning of your debate. I watched the debate between you and Korviday. Obviously there's been a lot that's been happening since then, but I feel like that's sort of like the best place to start, right? And we can, of course, like things have happened since then, and I don't want to take away from like all the discussions that's happened since then, but just for the frame of reference. So my initial watching of the video or of the debate between you two, I essentially see like two overbearing, like two still like, outstanding issues from the debate, right? Like two things that weren't really resolved, or two things that you both like still criticize each other for. I think that Korviday's strongest argument against you was the ableism bit, about ableist language, and I can talk about that a little bit. And I think that your strongest argument against Korviday is the fact that it seems like they kind of implied that they were going to be debating you about a lot more than they actually did, and that they kind of honed in on a very specific issue and didn't actually defend any of the other statements that they made against you on Twitter. Right? Mm-hmm. So
more or less that's it.
Yeah. So I mean, like, if you want to give some of your thoughts, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to start off by saying that even though I've come to the conclusion that I don't think Korviday went into that debate in good faith, I still think they made very good arguments on the ableism stuff, and that's why I changed my mind on it.
Yeah.
Usually, and I pride myself on this quite a bit. I mean, it's literally like not the gimmick of my channel, but what it's literally what my biggest video is about, like me and my political journey. If I hold a belief very strongly, I'm very attached to this belief, and I believe that it's true, but then someone makes an argument that fairly strongly debunks it or argues against it and uses logic and everything to get to that position, and I can't argue against that, I'm like, well, I mean, that is true. That is probably something I need to worry about. I'm probably going to change my mind. I mean, if I didn't, then I want to be right about things. So if I don't come out of a debate that I was wrong about something in, having changed my mind, I lost that debate, right? And so, yeah, I think Korviday has a point about the ableism stuff, and that's why I decided, even though I think it probably gets me a few brownie points with the edgy gamer boys that like to say slurs and call their friends the R word and whatnot, it's probably just not a good idea, because I know there's a lot of people in my audience who aren't, or who are not cool with ableism, so just might as well not do it, because it's not really... I can probably find other ways to do edginess without it if I'm really creative, but I don't know, maybe use that creativity will push me to make better insults and better edgy rhetoric that doesn't really like target a particular denomination of people.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, I wanted to get into why I think Korviday's in bad faith, but if you had something you wanted to interject there, you can.
Yeah, no, so my only thought that I wanted to add to that, because so to give you context where I was coming from at the beginning of the video, is that this is a bit more nuanced, like the whole ableism language discussion. I think that a lot of people think that it's not very nuanced, and that's sort of open and shut. But I don't see it that way, because I think that fundamentally you and Korviday agree that to some degree it's harmful to employ that sort of rhetoric, and that the distinction between you and their view was more about like the cost benefit analysis, like does whatever benefit it bring outweigh the possible harm that it does to people, right? And so I was more kind of like I've been thinking a lot more along that lines. And so like I don't want to, now mind you, this is different from my own personal view, right? Like I, on principle, I'm not going to employ that certain that type of language, and I don't, like I'm not going to defend it. But I think that what might be interesting for you if you ever want to do something like this, because honestly, like I'm not sure how much. Like, I know that you made the argument before that, like, the ableism language, like, by virtue of using it, has been able to bring people into your community from, like, a more edgy background. I would be very interested in seeing, like, numbers to that effect. So, like, maybe posting, like, a poll to your Twitter, like, hey, how many of you, like, actually joined my community by virtue of the fact that you use, like, the R slur during one of your streams or something like that? Because I feel like, let's say hypothetically that you posted a poll like that, and then it turns out that, like, only less than like 5% of your community actually joined for that purpose, and that like all like overwhelmingly the vast majority of people joined for like some other reason, whether it was like the quality of your arguments or like the different topics that you talk about, or like the fact that you're like a very a leftist that's willing to stand up for leftist subjects, right? Like I feel like you would just see that. And again, like I could be totally wrong on this. I don't know. Maybe like 99.9% of your audience actually follows you because you use the R slur. I don't know. But this is just like sort of my hypothesis that like I feel like most people probably follow you for another reason. So I don't know. I feel like the benefit of using that language, and it sounds like we sort of agree on this, whether or not it's for the same reason, or at least that we're sort of at this point that even if there is some benefit to using that, I think that the harm just outweighs any benefit it could bring.
Yeah, no, that's basically where I was at, right? Because I'm not going to use. There's a undeniable fact that me using ableist language will harm people who aren't cool with it within my community. The idea is, does the bad of that outweigh the good of potentially being able to reach out to those edgy boys online that like to use ableism? Exactly. And I always saw ableism as being like probably the least problematic of like edgy things I could do, because like what else is there? There's like I guess sexism and racism, and I'd never joke about transphobia. Like going even further, I mean it gets to a point where there's just like there's no these things are not going to bring anybody over nearly as much as they're just going to hurt my audience. And depending on where we draw the line with ableism, like there's still people who claim that whenever I say brainworms, like this person has brainworms, that's ableism. It's like, okay, but like brainworms isn't a real thing to my knowledge. I mean, I guess there are some people who've had their brain matter eaten by parasites, because that's a thing that happens. But I mean, that's like so rare that whenever it happens, I think there's this show that was on Discovery Channel called A Monster Inside of Me, and it's like a super gross show about people who've gotten parasites inside. Yeah. Super gross. Yeah, but I don't really think that's on the same level. So I mean, depending on where we draw the line where ableism begins, my justification used to be doing what I do, trying to attack people's ideas and their integrity. Just the way I do things. It is really important to be able to attack their intelligence. But that doesn't mean I have to attack their ability, or if I think they have a disability, right? So I figure I can probably just be more creative with stuff like that without doing anything that is what most people would genuinely say ableist, right? Like instead of saying the R word, I can say this person is brainworms. This person is smooth brain. This person sounds like, I don't know. But like there's I mean, those things are a bit softer, and I know there are people who take issue with that as well, but I think it would be such a small minority of people that it probably makes it worth it.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, again, for me, really, like, and I haven't heard the arguments whether or not, like, what, like, to the effect that saying that someone has brainworms is ableist. Like, I haven't heard that argument, and I'm not sure if I believe that's reasonable, and I withhold my opinion until I hear that argument. But like my first sort of inclination is that like the main issue is just using a word that has so much loaded language that it has like disparately harmed certain communities, and that like, I don't know, like obviously like I understand your perspective that there are a lot of times where you're looking at people's content on the internet and they just say things that are so outrageously crazy that you have to wonder if, you're like, it almost goes like by virtue of them making the statement itself, it goes to impugn their own intelligence, right? Like I get wanting to be able to call that out. It is just sort of the question of like, how do we go about doing that? Because like obviously like you do want to be able to call out when someone is saying like something stupid or something outrageous or something like completely fucking wrong, right? Like I get that. For me, like the only way that and again, like I want to leave the conversation to people who are of that background. Like I don't want this to turn into the sort of thing where like the conversation is being led to people who don't come from a, you know, a disabled background. But like for me, I feel like the main problem was just like using the one specific word, and otherwise you can probably get away with saying a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean that's generally where I sit now.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one of the things that is dumb at ableist. I mean, it depends where you draw the line. Yeah, I certainly agree with that now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why I always wanted to try to be as edgy as I could possibly be while explaining my beliefs is because most of the criticisms I get about using ableist language come from people who have, for the most part, never been reactionaries. They've never been like far right or reactionaries, or been in these spaces, generally speaking,
Sure,
where the people that I'm trying to reach hang out.
Yeah.
And I can say just from my experiences, having been one of those people, having spent a lot of time in those spaces, the type of humor that appeals, or just the type of rhetoric in general that appeals to these people, whew, it's a lot worse than anything that I do.
No, I
and
get.
Sometimes I used to get worried that I wasn't being edgy enough, because I would go into some of the old discords I would hang out in back when I was a reactionary. Because I'm still in a few of them, like from 2b2t.org, the Minecraft server. I'd go back into some of those discords and see what they're saying in the chat. And it's just like I would have to go nuclear edgy to appeal to these people.
Sure.
It's just, it would be impossible. So yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of what motivated me for a while.
No, I mean, like I completely understand. Something that's unique about my background, which probably helps me to sort of understand that, is that when I was working in Memphis and I was working at the nonprofit I did helping people who were homeless, right? Those are not exactly the most polite people, right? And that's not saying anything about them personally, but like when you've been raised in a certain background, it's not as if I, as a queer person, wasn't called like the F slur on more than one occasion, right? Like shit happens. And so like for me, because I didn't really have any opportunity, like when you're online, there's sort of the ability to be able to go like leave certain spaces, be able to find others which are more welcoming and more accepting, right? But for me, because of where I was at in my life, I didn't have that possibility. I was sort of stuck at where I was at, and so I had to just kind of deal with it, right? So I mean, like, I've been exposed to people who have said like believe me, and this is probably a big reason why I'm really sympathetic and I consider you a friend and all that, is because like believe me, I've been around people who have said like a lot worse things in my life and who I've gotten along with, right? Because I understand that fundamentally that they're good people. I just feel like here the sort of distinguishing factor is that like whereas most of the people who I was helping weren't necessarily like public figures, right? Like we have someone, like we're having a conversation with people who fundamentally are public figures and actually like pretty, I mean, we're not talking like ContraPoint size public figures, but decently large in their own right, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like the consequences of like even small things like that are actually pretty monumental. I was actually talking with I was talking with a larger creator the other day, and it'd be like the more that you the larger that you grow as a content creator, especially a leftist content creator, the more scrutiny you come under, right? I'm actually kind of enjoying being a smaller content creator right now, because let's face it, I haven't gone under all of that much scrutiny at this point, right? Which is cool because it means I can talk to people and, not have to deal with the negative aspects of being a larger creator. But like, that's something that sorry, go on if you're going to say something.
Oh yeah, I was going to say I can completely relate to that. But I remember the days when I was a smaller YouTuber. Nobody on Twitter knew who I was. I didn't really have that much accountability on me.
Yeah.
But I think the most you've had to deal with was like during the Essence of Thought stuff, when they did some bad stuff that I feel like they were trying to like make you lose your ability to do the bar exam.
It was not great and very scary. It's definitely made me much more cautious, and I've definitely tried my best to be kind towards people who I want to be. I don't really give a fuck about like bigots or reactionaries, but like to other leftists, I am definitely I always try to extend that olive branch to the best of my ability. But yeah, right, like at this point I haven't really had to deal that much, so I understand. And there's also this element that there's a lot of people who are going through this. And when I say who are young, I mean like relative to like the vast majority population, right? Like all of us are decently young, right? Like most of us are like under 30. We're like still in the beginning parts of our lives relative to the entire rest of it. I mean, we're like an entire generation that's sort of dealing with this new thing that we don't have that we don't really have like a how-to guide on how to do it, right? So as we're going through, and as I suspect that people are operating in good faith and these sorts of things unfold, I do want to try and have as much discussion as is productive, right? So like on something like this, and especially, and this might be a good pivot into some of your criticisms of Korviday, because I understand some of them relate to this idea that the way that we engage with criticism online, especially on social media, it can have a really detrimental effect if you let it get to a certain point and employ a certain way of phrasing your concerns and criticisms, right? And I want to make sure as we're going forth in this conversation, because I've thought about this a lot, right? I don't want to make it out that this is like a criticism based on like fundamentally on like a preference for like respectability politics. Perhaps some of this is coming from my experience. I mean, I literally just took written and oral advocacy, right? Which is fundamentally like a class on persuasion, right? And the last thing you ever want to do if you are trying to fundamentally to persuade someone is to like criticize their moral character or to insult them. I think I would actually like if I did that, I would never be hired by any firm or any place ever. I would be blackballed into oblivion, right? And so when you're trying to be persuasive, now if you're just trying to be critical of someone and you're just trying to shit on them, if we're talking about like a reactionary or like Sargon of Akkad or whatever, right? Then yeah, you can be as shitty on them, as shitty towards them as you want. But I was a little hurt by some of the things that I saw between you and Korviday on Twitter, right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it basically stems to why I don't know if I feel comfortable saying Korviday was in good faith.
Sure.
So I should probably tell you about the lead up to the debate.
Yeah.
Now, Korviday is somebody that I had blocked because I'd seen them in my mentions saying some really, really mean and just incorrect stuff about me.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it currently. I'm actually working on a video about it right now that debunks literally everything.
Oh, wow.
But the Harem drama. So a lot of people on Twitter that have no idea what they're talking about have been saying that I have like a sex cult. Even Thought Slime jumped in on this.
I remember seeing that.
And it was weird. It was really weird, and I didn't know why. But you'll find out how I figure out what happened there when you see the video. It's gonna be pretty good.
All right, awesome.
Now, basically, what I had done, just for like a Cliff Notes version of the story behind this, you understand
that'd be
why
great.
I was so angry at Korviday.
Sure.
Me. And a little while ago, I had to take a break from streaming because I got really burned out on it, needed a break. I also bit a big hole in my lip, so it was hard for me to talk for long periods of time.
Ouch.
So I was like, okay, I want to take a break from streaming for a little bit. So I spent a lot of time in my Discord server, chilling in the voice chat and playing video games. I started talking to a few people in there who, I should mention, were not fans of me.
All right.
But did enjoy hanging out in my server to talk to people. And so I started talking to them, and they thought they were pretty chill. And I didn't have anything else to do all day, so we kind of just hung out and played video games. And eventually, because we would be sitting in VC and talking, me and like these other friends that I'd made, some of them I'd known for a long time as well. We were talking, we'd hang out, but then like a bunch of my fans would join the voice chat, and it would kind of be not chill. So we decided to make a separate section for me to hang out in with my friends, and we decided to call it Xanderhal's Harem as a reference to Destiny, because Destiny has like a running joke that he's like the protagonist of a harem anime, which is like when you have like one male character and a bunch of female characters, and the female character's like, yeah, I'm just explaining it for chat.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like an actual polyamorous relationship or anything. It was literally just called Xanderhal's Harem as a joke because all of them were women and I was a guy. But there wasn't like anything romantic between any of us.
Okay.
Also, I've seen this thing going around that no trans women were allowed in our friend group. One of them was literally trans. This is just like a blatant lie on the part of the girl making this accusation. And it's funny because we have screenshots of her talking to the trans girl that was in our friend group about girl dick and about her girl dick. So she's just lying. The girl who's made the accusation is just lying here. So I'm excited to put out this video because we got a lot of screenshots.
All right.
And so we would just kind of hang out all day. There was an NSFW section of the like the chat for people to like post, but it was, you know, done completely consensually, and I mean, I don't see any issue with that. Like I mean, if they were fans of me, then that would be pretty problematic, but they weren't. So I mean, they were just friends of mine. And then we eventually did end up needing to move it into another server because Emily got really annoyed that people were complaining because people thought it was actually real. People thought I had like an actual like polycule that I was forming and having hosted in my server, and I was like, it's not that, but fine. So we decided to move it to a different server, and one of the other women in there that I was friends with, she ended up making the server. She was the one who owned it, the only one with power in it. She would actually change my nickname and my role to like simp and stuff like that, or whatever she found funny. So I didn't really have any power in there, but it was a good meme.
Yeah.
And things went fine like that for a while until one of the members, who I won't name on your stream because I don't know if you want to like.
Yeah, let's not mention. Yeah, let's not mention names.
One of the girls that was in there one day while I was asleep, you know, sleep until 5 p.m. Had, and she stated this herself, so I don't think I'll get any heat for this, a mental breakdown.
Okay.
She was in a voice chat with everyone else, as well as one of my moderators from my server, talking about Star Wars, and she's like a huge Star Wars fan.
Okay.
And the topic of Reylo came up because she's a big time Reylo stan. Reylo is like the shipping of Rey and Kylo Ren.
Oh,
and,
all right. I heard that before, and I was unfamiliar. That makes sense.
Yeah, she's like a huge time shipper of that, to the point where like she's obsessive about it. And apparently, some drama in the Star Wars community happened a long time ago, where John Boyega, the actor who plays Finn, said some misogynistic stuff about Rey, the character, and this got a lot of Reylo fans upset, and they went after John Boyega with racism. They told like racist death threats and stuff like that.
Wow. All right.
And so talking about this set this girl off to the point where she started screaming. Allegedly, it was a voice chat that I was not in, so I'm not 100% sure. But judging by the screenshots of her reaction afterwards, this holds up. She started screaming, insulting everybody else, and then said that she's mad because apparently when that original drama happened in the Star Wars community, this was like a while ago, she tried to kill herself over it. So they'd reminded her of that, and so that's what really set her off. And so she ended up lashing out at everybody, calling the other people names that I will not repeat on this stream because I don't know what your level of like bad words are that you're allowed to have, that you want to have.
I mean,
on
like,
here.
Let's just keep it clean for now.
Yeah, we'll keep it clean. And then went to her own server where she made an announcement. I kind of want to read it. It's nothing personal, but just to kind of give you a little bit of insight on
go for it.
Yeah, let me just bring up. I actually made a document I plan on releasing along with my video on it because I want to make sure all the information available is there, and it has all the screenshots in it. So I'm gonna.
That sounds great.
There it is. Yep. All right. So this was the announcement that she made. At everyone, anti-Reylo or the Last Jedi speak will get you an instant ban, even if you are joking. I don't care anymore. I don't get upset over many things. I'd honestly rather you mock me for my disabilities, me being a girl, and the fact I got sexually assaulted when I was younger, before I let you mock me and make fun of the two things I mentioned. Thank you and good night. It's so fucking easy. It's such easy fucking rules, but half of you can't fucking follow them. At everyone, that also includes outside of the server as well. So if I see you say that shit, you will get kicked. So yeah, she kind of went on like a little bit of a a bit of a tirade. She also told everybody who was in the voice chat when she like had this, when they came up with that topic, that if she kills herself or self-harms herself, it'll be their fault, which is undeniably abuser behavior. Like saying if I kill myself, it's 100%.
So that's based on the people who were in that voice call with her. That's what they said. That she said.
No, I have screenshots of her saying it. If you want me to read it, I can. The fact you didn't message me when I was missing for 5 days shows how much of snakes you are. You never cared. Too bad. It's all your fault. You can deny it, but it's all your fault that I attempted to kill myself. If I self-harm, it's your fault. It's all your faults.
Okay. Wow. Yep. All right. Yeah.
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 Okay.
This video is coming out soon. I got screenshots of everything. So
all right.
yeah.
No, thank you for having that available. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Go on.
it's yeah. So basically, she started blaming everybody else that was involved, that was in like the VC and everything, on her apparently self-harming and trying to kill herself and all that. One of the women in our friend group decided to make sure that she would be okay because she was having a breakdown, and on Twitter as well. You can go see those tweets on her account, I assume, if it's still up.
Okay.
And decided to call the police, her local police, to try to make sure she's like, if she actually tries to hurt herself, they can stop her. And she apparently, from what I was told, she got Baker acted for like 5 days. And then when she started messaging us again, it became very clear she wanted back in our friend group. And we were like, no.
Yeah, absolutely not.
No, what? Wait, the things that you said and did, that's unforgivable. We're not letting you back in. But I didn't want to like just say that to her face, right? I didn't want to like just say fuck you, go away.
Sure.
I told her no, we're not letting you back in. But I didn't want to give the impression that we were friends, but I also didn't want to like let her off too hard because I thought that would be a bad idea with like the state she's in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then she started tweeting things like this. That while we were still like kind of cool, right? And I still followed her on Twitter and stuff. She started tweeting weird things like, I should be clear, I think Xanderhal is a good leftist and someone we need. My opinions of him are personal, so no amount of weirdos planning to cancel him can get me to talk to them about it, unless you offer me a place to live and food. That last part might sound like a joke. It's not, because shortly after I followed her, because I was getting weirded out, she said, Xanderhal unfollowed, so I can safely say it. Fuck him. And then after that, she started tweeting like at 1 million words a minute, about how I'd like promised her the future, like promised her a place to live, that we were in a relationship, that I was going to buy her food and a place to live with me and my girlfriend. Now this is like not true on so many levels, mostly because the current living situation that I'm in wouldn't have even allowed this.
Yeah.
I will be moving in with my girlfriend pretty soon though, because we're actually finding a place. But at the time, this just was an idea, if anything. And the most I ever did in regards to her was say, hey, since we're friends, maybe sometime in the future we can hang out. But no solid plans were ever made. So I don't know where she gets this.
The way that I always frame this is like I always wonder like the question that I always ask is not necessarily whether or not she not whether or not she had an absolute right to believe this, but whether or not it was reasonable for her to believe this. So let me just ask you the question then. So based on that, do you think it was reasonable for her to believe that she was going to have like an authentic relationship with you?
No, definitely not. Especially because I have screenshots of everybody else. I don't have any of me because most of my talking was done in voice chat.
Yeah.
I have screenshots of literally everybody else that was in the server saying this was not a relationship.
Okay.
As well. So hey, I'm bringing out the receipts.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, and that's great, right? Because I mean, for me, right, as I was following this, and like, I didn't weigh in, right, but like, my main question is not so much like whether or not it's not so much whether or not you had the availability to be able to give her those things, right? It's more about like whether or not she was able to form a reasonable belief that you were going to, right? This goes along the same logic. Actually, it's very similar to like the logic that I have to be careful with when I'm talking about like the danger of possibly forming like a lawyer-client relationship. Because the way that happens, it's not as if that happens from like me sitting down and like giving someone a piece of paper and having them signing on the dotted line, right? It's a lot more fluid. It just happens when someone reasonably believes that I become their lawyer, right? That's like the full threshold for it. So like I have to be extremely careful to always make sure that a reasonable person would not believe that I am their lawyer, right? That's why I have my disclaimers. That's why I make sure to always like caveat everything that I say when it involves the law, right? Like that's why I do that thing, right? And so like with this conversation, like that's sort of where I have my eye towards, and I tend to agree based on what you've told me that it would have been an unreasonable thing for her to believe that you were going to give her all of these things.
Yeah, it really was not something that she could have come to the conclusion of reasonably.
Yeah.
But her argument that she's been using like recently from what I've seen on Twitter is that she has autism, and so she wasn't able to interpret that whenever I would say, I want to buy a giant mansion and import a harem, like referencing Destiny, that was a joke.
Okay, unless like
But
you
the
specifically
problem
knew
is-
about it, then that's not your fault. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
immediately.
Also, I'm going to be including clips from everybody else who is involved because they're being very negatively affected by this girl's lying. They're also going to be like I'm going to be including clips of them and their thoughts on these into the video as well.
Okay.
They were in the voice chat at the time. None of them thought that it was serious. All of them knew that it was a joke. So yeah. Also, around the same time, I was joking a lot in the voice chat about buying an offshore oil rig and starting my own independent country, like Diamond Dogs from Metal Gear Solid 5. So I feel like the blatant sarcasm was
very prevalent.
Was pretty much out there.
Yeah.
But like going on to like her Twitter meltdown, she started to get into like started saying some really weird stuff. So she started basically admitting that she was only friends with me for money and only saw like a potential relationship with me for money.
Okay.
So here's some of her like tweets and messages. Holy shit, I realize I almost performed the plot of Parasite on Xanderhal. Now that is really performing well as a leftist. There are two Xanders in my life. One of them is my closest friend who I care about very deeply and would die for. The other one is Xanderhal, but one of them is my closest friend. The other can buy me food. They're basically on the same level. So, and then after I like unfollowed her and she started like, attacking me on Twitter, she tweeted, "So who's going to be my next sugar daddy?" And then like a few other tweets like that. So it became pretty clear.
Yeah, that's not great. That's not great at all.
Yeah, it became pretty clear she only intended to like get stuff out of me.
Yeah, just to mooch off of you.
And then so I blocked her on Twitter actually, because I was like, okay, this is going too far. At this point, this wasn't even drama, so I just blocked her.
Sure.
Then she made a new account, and I'm gonna have to open up a folder for this one to get get some of the tweets here because there's some good ones. After I blocked her, she bypassed the block by making a new account called "Fuck You 735186101."
What does that mean?
It was just because I blocked her. She made a new account called "Fuck You."
Okay.
So she could like continue to tweet at me.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, her tweets had gotten to the point where it was just I couldn't not laugh at these. She was like tweeting in all caps, saying things like, "Why am I the emotional manipulator when he insinuated I could have a better life? He calls me abusive because he knows he can make me the screaming harpy," which she tweets in all caps. She was literally telling, and we have proof of this, she was literally telling the other women in our friend group that if she killed herself or she self-harmed, it was their fault. She was literally being abusive.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's made a new account to bypass a block. And so I have 19 screenshots of her tweeting on this new account, the Fuck You account. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. No, I certainly, like, based on the totality of the evidence that you provided me, I'm inclined to agree with you that, yeah, it seems like you were misrepresented a lot in the course of, when that happened. Just based on, like, I'm completely, like, I'm trusting you. I'm ascribing, like, complete validity to everything that you're saying to me. But yeah, based on what you have told me, yeah, it sounds like this person came to an unreasonable conclusion and then engaged in abusive behavior as a result of that unreasonable conclusion, right? So it's, like, bad on two fronts for me, right? And of course, then all the drama sort of started unfolding after that.
Yeah, and I saw Korviday was in chat a minute ago and was just saying, "Don't care, don't care, don't care" in response to all this.
I wasn't paying attention. I don't pay attention to my chat too much when I'm talking to someone. Also, I'm very sorry about that, chat. I know that I should, but like I'm more focused on the conversation right now. Also, wait a second. Hold on. This is actually very confusing to me. Korviday, are you sure that you're in chat? Because you messaged me earlier that you were too tired to not come on to come on to the chat. So like, I'm very confused by this.
I don't know if it's 100% him because I can't click on his account, but I'm pretty sure it's him. He said, "I don't care. I'm leaving now because I'm sick of this," and like just saying, "I'm just here to say that this is the 4th stream he's made in a week talking about this." I haven't made a stream. What are you talking about? I stream like almost every day, and sometimes topics come up. I don't.
Hold on.
This is why I think Korviday is in bad faith, because the way that they're engaging with this as well, and we'll actually get into it a little later. Because I actually know that Korviday is going at this in bad faith because of a sound clip, or not a sound clip, but a video clip I have from a stream that this girl did. But we'll get into that a little later because it gets worse somehow.
Well, can I just, before we go on, just on this, so, I mean, like, I message, like, the way that I handle these sorts of things when I try to mediate, I mean, like, for me, and before we go on, just because, like, this is a bit of a red flag for me, Korviday was one of the people who wanted me to mediate, like to do mediation content. Like when I posted the poll earlier, I think it was like about a month ago, where I asked people what content I wanted, people wanted me to do. they were one of the people who specifically commented that they wanted me to do mediation content. So that's one thing. And the second thing, I mean, like, this is very surprising because I told you both, I invited you both onto the stream, and I wanted to talk to both of you individually to get your sides of the story and be able to try and come to some form of mediation. Like, I've been very clear, I've been very transparent at every point, and literally they messaged me, all right, so I messaged them earlier because originally I planned to have them come on before you because I know that you specifically requested to come on after they did. And so they said, hi, IDK, if I'm up for it, not going to lie, I'm kind of exhausted. I think the debate just kind of took it out of me, lol. And I said, okay, then I won't invite you on. So I'm confused why they say, like, why they were exhausted, but apparently not exhausted enough to be able to come on when they already started watching the stream and were able to comment on it. But that's a very weird observation. I wanted to just put that out there, like, while that's sort of fresh off the presses.
Yeah, I have a few ideas as to why he was too tired to come on the stream, but not too tired to be in chat. But I mean, we'll get into that a little later.
Yeah, let's keep talking.
I'll let you come to your own conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So I have from here. She started demanding an apology from me.
Okay.
On Twitter, just like all caps tweeting at me. And at this point, she'd already made her second account, and I was actually in a voice chat in my server with like a bunch of my friends at the time. And these tweets, now this may sound a little bit insensitive. I think this is the worst thing I did in this entire interaction was we were like reading her tweets in like a Donald Trump voice and like laughing at them because they were just they were low key kind of funny because like this is somebody who is engaged in abusive behavior against my friends, who admitted that they were using me for money and a place to live, who made a new Twitter account to bypass me blocking them called "fuck you," and then started spamming me with with ats in all caps, and then now was like demanding an apology. So while it was probably a little bit insensitive, I felt like it's not that big a deal.
Sure.
And so we're like reading her tweets in a Trump voice and stuff like that. And then we decided, okay, this is going a little too far. Like we gotta sort this out. So we eventually caved, invited her to a voice chat.
Okay.
And we brought her in. At first, it was like in the same voice chat we were all in, but we decided it would probably be best to do this in private because she was crying, and so we brought her into a separate voice chat, and it was me, only a few of the girl, like the women that were in the harem, and then my head moderator or admin, and like just basically some of my server staff to make sure things didn't get too heated. And she started crying, and I got like really, really uncomfortable because women crying makes me uncomfortable.
Okay.
There may be psychological reasons for that, but I'm not going to armchair psychoanalyze myself.
Hey, therapy is great. Listen, everyone should get therapy.
Yeah, just in general, women crying makes me uncomfortable. She was also screaming at some parts, like full on screaming at me. So I just eventually said, all right, whatever. Actually, at one point, she admitted in the call that she was wearing a mask. This was the direct quote. She was wearing a mask. That's how she worded it the whole time. She was like, I'm glad you liked my mask. Whenever I said, we thought you were cool, we thought you were chill, she said, I'm glad you liked my mask. She admits that she was pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was pretending she didn't have the issues that she did. And it's weird because now on Twitter, she's saying things like, how did Xanderhal not arm... She said this in her live stream she did. Xanderhal likes to armchair psychoanalyze people so much. Why didn't he armchair psychoanalyze me and figure out I have autism and wouldn't be capable of understanding the jokes that he made? I think it's like a direct quote from her stream that she did about this. That's... I don't even know where to begin with that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Hold on. So first, she actively admitted that she was wearing a mask, so I wouldn't be able to tell if she did have any of those issues. Two, right. If I did, then me refusing to be friends with somebody because she has autism would be ableist as fuck. So I mean, like,
yeah, it puts you in the box. It's putting you in the box.
Yeah. So there's nothing I can do there. And so eventually I just bit the bullet and I said, you know what? I don't actually mean it, but just to get this to stop, I'm gonna apologize to her for whatever perceived like ill that she believes I did. And at the time, it was. We were in a relationship. I promised her a place to live and she's poor, so she needed it. And because she had a mental breakdown, I broke up with her. And now she still believes that she believes she deserves an apology because she had an opportunity at a better future and lost it, even though that wasn't even close to what actually happened. But that was her narrative at the time. All the stuff you've heard about like me abusing like fans, her being a fan, none of that she didn't go with any of that in the beginning. That was not her story, explicitly. In fact, I have evidence to support that too. I got screenshots.
Wonderful. Thank you for being like, I appreciate evidence. Obviously, like I'm very pro evidence. So thank you for being as prepared as you can be.
Oh, if you like evidence, shortly after as the video goes up, I'm going to be publishing it in the description. I'm going to be uploading very mildly edited screenshots of everything that is relevant to this.
Damn.
And I have over 50 screenshots so far. Where me and the other women that we're friends with that were involved with this are still gathering more, like from her Twitter, from things like that.
Sure.
So, and I'm going to be editing out like docs and things that are like not safe for work and stuff like that. But I'm going to be publishing those screenshots for people to make their own opinions on when they see that.
Okay.
But so after I apologized to her, she seemed to calm down and said she would delete her tweets. I was like, all right, I guess we're good now.
Yeah.
And I wake up the next morning and I find out fucking Thought Slime.
Oh shit, that's when this happens.
He caught wind of the drama and he tweeted about it with no evidence. Not even having, like, he hadn't even listened to what the girl had to say at this point because she ended up correcting him at the time. It's funny, too. He tweeted, there's a very specific reason why I emphasize that YouTubers should not date their fans, but I did not think that we would arrive at the sex cult portion of the danger quite so quickly. Then someone very familiar responded, I'm lacking context. Is this referring to Xanderhal TV? It was you.
Yeah.
Then he said, yep. And then someone in response said, the situation is messy, to be sure, but calling it a sex cult is dishonest hyperbole. Then Thought Slime responded, no, it isn't actually.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Somebody named, do you want me to send a screenshot of this just so you can see it? Because someone named Eddie Chase had responded to that. Let's see. Thought Slime. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and send it into our DMs. Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
There we go. All right. So you can see this was the interaction on Twitter. You're in it as well, but also the part that I'm referencing is a little bit lower. Eddie Chase said, the situation is messy, be sure, but calling it a sex cult is dishonest hyperbole. And he said,
I remember
no,
this.
It isn't actually.
I remember this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so basically Thought Slime like doubled down on this claim, which he made with no evidence, not even with like, not even having like even talked or seeing anything other than, I imagine, like a couple tweets from the girl that made the accusation, right? And then about 2 hours later, he tweeted, actually, I'll go ahead and message you this as well. So you can, I would actually prefer if you could bring these screenshots up if they're nothing too private yet, because I want to be able to censor some of them because docs. Here is the other Thought Slime screenshot that he did a couple hours later. Should I have used the term sex cult? Evidently not. That is against the wishes of the person who brought this scandal to light. I'm sorry to have done that and upset them. However, the fact that my phrasing has become the takeaway here is very obvious redirect, and then just some other shit that
I feel like that's a pretty important. I feel like that's basically the most important point of like the entire tweet, right? Like that's essentially the accusation. I don't know. Yeah.
And he's saying it's hyperbole. He is saying that it's just a little bit of hyperbole that he said they had a sex cult, which is arguably illegal. As opposed to it was a group of friends that where we made a Discord server that we hung out in, and occasionally not safe for work posts, and none of them were fans of mine, and it was by no means a sex cult, especially because one of the women in the server was a trans woman who's a lesbian, not attracted to men, not attracted to me in any way sexually or romantically, and any NSFW stuff that happened between with her was with the other women in the server. Like,
oh wow,
it was literally just by like no means a sex cult. But yes, Thought Slime still decided to tweet this out and still to this day refuses to apologize for it. So yeah.
Oh, so Thought Slime that like never backed away from that whatsoever?
No, he's doubled down, and he actually tweeted this behind a block, so I couldn't defend myself. He tweeted this shortly after blocking me, so there was no way for me to like defend myself from his accusations, which was his intention, I imagine. And so if we go even further, so at this point, the girl's accusation is that we were in a relationship. We were, I promised her a place to live and food and stuff like that, and even corrected Thought Slime saying it was a sex cult, or that there was any like dishonest or any dangerous power imbalances here. I saw Korviday in chat saying there was a power unbalanced there.
Oh,
And
really?
I guess
Were they
you can make
just
the case
in the
that
hair right now?
yeah, and you can make the case that me as like a creator, I will always have a power imbalance over everybody.
Sure.
But the implication is she was a fan of me. Right, the implication was she was a fan of me, and we're gonna get into how I'm pretty sure that's not true as well, and evidence against that.
Okay.
And so after a while, her accusations started to change as like the drama started to die down, because I made this big Twitter thread that debunked all of her current claims.
Sure.
And you know, I have tweets from people tweeting at her that were in the group saying, please stop turning this into drama. Just because there was an NSFW section doesn't mean it was a relationship. None of us thought there was a relationship, and you know it. You know, stuff like that.
Okay.
But then her accusations started to change, and that's where the current drama came from. It's why you were hearing people on Twitter say Xanderhal had an abusive sex cult with his fans, right? And she started to fall in with some people in the anti-breadtube crowd on Twitter, you know, like Jamie from Twitter, who you may know from calling Peter Coffin a pedophile, and
I remember
starting
that
a ton of drama a while back. I actually have a screenshot of it if you want to.
Yeah, sure, go for it. I mean, like, I can just bring up, if you send me something, I can bring it up on stream, so that's a lot easier.
Yep. So this is the person we were referring to, that this girl who's made the accusation has fallen into like this group of people is who she's become friends with, and this is a reference to Peter Coffin.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so these are the people she's hanging out with now. Now, this is not armchair psychology. She said this herself in a tweet, I believe. I don't have a screenshot of it, but I'm pretty sure I remember her saying this.
Okay.
When we were friends, if I ever got into like her Discord voice chat, if I ever got into a Discord voice chat with her, a ton of people would join. She'd have a ton of people to talk to, and that seemed to be what she wants. She wanted like she wanted social capital, and she wanted literal like actual capital, so she could get out of like her impoverished situation, right? And so now she'd found a community of people who already hate me, who already hate breadtubers in general, and are just like foaming at the mouth for any a perceived action of like sexual impropriety on my part, right? Because that's usually the go-to, right? Like being able to call someone you don't like on the internet a pedophile, or like a rapist, or like a sexual predator is like the go-to thing. Because if you can get that going enough, you can ruin someone's career. I mean,
right.
basically their strategy. So she'd fallen in with those people and had essentially become, I can only assume, their tool, and started like sort of repeating their talking points, even though she was, you know, a week ago debunking them on the part of Thought Slime. And this is actually when Korviday got involved. Korviday defended Thought Slime, and I believe the tweet that Korviday made was, anybody attacking Thought Slime for perceived hyperbole is defending someone who has, and then like listing their transgressions with me.
Sure.
Which is like wrong on so many levels. And this is what I wanted to debate Korviday about, because this is like what 90% of their tweets about me were with. Like, so for one, even if I had done this, that doesn't justify it doesn't justify using dishonest hyperbole, as he worded it, against somebody, because you have other issues with them. It's dishonest as fuck. Two, the dishonest hyperbole was literally just a lie. It was by no definition a sex cult. And at that time, while most of them wanted to stay anonymous because they didn't like drama, at least a couple of the women involved were already speaking out against this girl's lies.
Sure.
And saying it was not a sex cult. So this was just him like looking away from anybody involved and trying to make up his own shit. For reasons I don't know. I know Thought Slime's disliked me for a long time, so I have reasons why.
Okay, but this is important to know. So this is sort of where the things between you and Korviday specifically started, was around sort of like the aftermath, or like the events involving like you and Thought Slime relating to like these allegations against you.
As far as I'm aware, yes. The most I'd ever heard of Korviday was ContraPoint's canceling video where she mentioned them.
Right.
At this point, I didn't even block Korviday until like a week or so, until our debate came up, because that's when he really started getting into my mentions and like defending this girl, which I can I would, if I thought Korviday was in good faith, which I don't anymore, I would be like, okay, I mean, just safer than sorry, believe victims, right? If someone's an alleged victim, you generally want to believe them because there's a lot on the line for them.
Yeah.
But at this point, even still, if he'd done even the slightest bit of research, which evidently he did, because he's still saying I don't care in response to these things, then he would have known that this is unbelievably irresponsible. Literally, all the evidence debunks the claims that they made. And so, if we go even further down the line of shit that happened, she started talking about how she plans on profiting from this drama. explicitly, both in the live stream that she did about it, as well as in her tweets. I got a few tweets.
How
is
is she
here.
profit? I mean, like, if you want to show
well,
them to me, then yeah, I'll bring them up on stream. But like, I really, how do you profit from all this drama? I mean, like, aside from like views, I suppose.
Yeah, just give me a moment. I'm actually sending you the screenshots right now.
Oh my god.
She, at this point, it's like pretty he said, she said, even though I brought up some pretty damning screenshots. I like to think this is pretty good evidence against her claims. But it's still he said, she said, right? It's just me against her. But there were 5 other, or technically 6 if you count me, but 5 other people in the group with me, in there with me, who are also very upset by her pushing the narrative that they were victims of like sexual abuse on my part. They are not happy with that, especially because some of them have endured sexual abuse earlier in their lives, and her lying and trivializing it to something like this is really offensive to them. Not only that, but she's also engaged in blatant ableism, as we've already gone over, right? Like not even like just blatant ableism.
Wait, do you have examples?
Yeah, she's been using her mental breakdown that she had during the Star Wars stuff as an excuse for her actions, like how she engaged in abusive behavior. She's been using that, and she also said that if I love armchair psychoanalyzing so much, why didn't I armchair psychoanalyze her to figure out she's autistic? But then it would have been ableist of me to not be friends with her for being autistic. Like that would have been. I think we can agree on that. So yeah, those are just a couple of examples right off the top. She's been resorting to like her autism as an excuse for her actions for a while.
Gotcha.
But at this point, the drama, everybody else that was involved is getting really pissed because they know she's lying, and for a while it was just like, yeah, she's lying, but this drama is going to eventually die off, right? But now it's clearly not dying off, and it's affecting them. Literally all the other women involved, it's affecting them very negatively, their mental state and whatnot. And so they want to speak out against it. And so I actually, we watched the live streams that this girl made all together. We did it all together in a voice chat in Discord. And we basically wrote down all of the claims she made, and we were like calling her out on all of her bullshit. And so what I did was I made a document, which I wrote down all of the basic claims I've been hearing from her. And on Twitter, my responses, I'm going to be recording the responses of everybody else involved to include in the video, as well as screenshots to substantiate my response to my debunking of these claims whenever they're necessary.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can go over a couple of those if you like.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We're already including like as much context as possible. This is just nice for me because I like being able to go over the evidence.
And you got 106 viewers right now.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Holy shit. Hey, thanks for watching, everyone. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're going to be the new drama lord. I would actually way prefer your place to Keemstar, honestly.
We'll see what happens. I really don't want to be like the person that's just like talking about all the drama. I'd rather there not be any drama. But hey, if this is what you got to do to try and get rid of it, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the problem, though, right? Because at this point, I feel like this is some pretty damning evidence against this girl who made these accusations.
Mm-hmm.
And now we had Korviday, who was just basically like outward stated they fully believe her no matter what.
Sure.
Making a ton of indefensible claims about me on Twitter. And then when we get into a debate, he falls back, says, I don't want to talk about these claims that I made on Twitter. He refuses to talk about anything involving this drama, in which he is like outright on his platform stated he believes her and is backing her up. So you can understand why that would be pretty upsetting for me, because most of the preparation I did for that debate was around this, because this was what I thought the debate was going to be about. That was the majority of the stuff that Korviday tweeted. And then he laser focuses on the ableism stuff, which was like one of like 10 tweets he made about me, right? I actually, in my preparation, was like, okay, I'm probably just going to like, move on from that if he brings it up, because like I don't think we have the same goals in terms of like de-radicalization and whatnot.
Sure.
But he managed to laser focus on this. Like he was super toxic on Twitter, and then when he got onto stream, he was like super, he basically went from being like a rabid dog on Twitter to being a kitten on stream, you know, playing off very well optically to my audience, to the point where I had my own audience saying, yikes, this ain't it, and like telling me to stop whenever I was like talking to Korviday about it. So you know what? Props to him for playing the optics game so well. Though I admit, towards the end, I did get him to concede literally everything other than the ableism, besides getting into the harem drama.
Yeah.
like his weird, like ironically enough, psychoanalyzing of Vosh, saying Vosh was distancing himself from me because he thought I was problematic. He like walked back on all of that because there was no evidence for it. He just felt like shit talking me and Vosh. And then also the ContraPoints clip, which after giving the context of, I think he conceded because there's literally no context in which that was like super problematic. The way he tried to frame it in his tweet, which got like I lost friends over that tweet because the way it was framed.
Oh, wow.
People like it came off as me being like a sleazeball that was like talking like negatively or like in a really weird way about ContraPoints. Literally all it was a taken out of context clip of me covering Ariel Scarcella, the grifting turf. Not even a turf, I would say. She's conservative. In which she strawmanned the progressive position that genital preferences are inherently transphobic. And I said, no, that is a strawman. Genital preferences are not inherently transphobic. They can contribute to transphobic attitudes, but on their own, they are not. And then I used an example. So, for example, you can absolutely see a trans woman as a woman and be attracted to them, but may not be interested in having a sexual relationship with them because you are not interested in their genitals. But if you had a trans woman who is post-op and just as every way noticeable as basically a cis woman, right? And you're still not into them because of the fact that they're trans, that's transphobic. And that was basically the clip that I had. And I used ContraPoints as an example because obviously, you know, I mean, she's beautiful.
I'm inclined to agree. I agree completely on that front. No, and I see your argument, right? Like I think I was actually watching that stream. I didn't see anything problematic with it. I'm inclined to agree. People can have like there's a distinction between having gender preferences and not seeing someone as authentically a man or a woman or however they identify, right? Like I didn't see anything wrong with that argument. I think that trying to phrase it as something else is very dishonest.
Yeah, absolutely. And so basically Korviday clipped that, and like a lot of people I lost friendships over. And like I can understand the perspective. The way that it was clipped was made to seem like I was talking creepily about ContraPoints, but when we actually took apart the arguments there, even if we did take it at face value, when we actually took apart the arguments, we're talking about somebody who has outwardly stated they like me, that they think I'm cool. They literally, there was drama because she modded me in her stream, her Sims stream the other day, because she was like, she saw me in chat and was like, oh, I know you, you're cool, and then like modded me right away. And then a bunch of people were like, Natalie, why would you mod somebody who's done this, this, and this? Like literally, and then like canceling Contra over modding me in her stream. But yeah, so that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Fuck, there was something else I was gonna say. Yeah, so basically, like we're talking about somebody who has sold, I believe, has sold merch in reference to like the sensation of having girl dick in your mouth, right? The mouth feel thing.
Yeah.
Like this is not somebody who has been like super tight knit and super like nervous, I guess, about talking about their transition to her audience. Like this is something that actively, if you go into any Discords, if you go into the ContraPoints Discord server, if you go into a Reddit, this is basically no more private than the stuff that they joke about on there. Like this is just a thing ContraPoints fans talk about. So I thought this was like very dishonestly taken out of context, and so I responded to it, and I lost friends over that clip because that clip went viral. That thing that Korviday tweeted, that went viral, but he seemed to have more or less conceded it whenever we actually talked about it and discussed the context, because you know the context seems to make it very different. But yeah, he just laser focused like 90% of the stream on the ableism stuff, which he knew I was the weakest on. He knew he could get me on. He knew he could get me optically on, because there was no way I could argue against, admittedly, there's no way I can argue against this cute non-binary dude who comes onto my stream to tell me why my ableism is problematic. There's just, optically speaking, that's the best optics he could have possibly done playing to my audience. He also was very like cordial and reasonable, even though his claims on Twitter were just indefensible, and his behavior on Twitter was just overtly toxic. And then he was able to just absolutely get a pass from talking about this. The harem drama. I know so that's really what pissed me off when it came to the Korviday situation. That's why
I think share some thoughts.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been talking to different people. I've spoken with Korviday, I've spoken with Chud Logic, because I mean, like a part of that, like, and I don't hold this against Chud Logic. I think that he had to make like a gut call in the middle of, like, in the moment, right, on whether or not to let you all talk about like that line of questioning, right? I think that one of you were going. I think that you might I think that you were looking to bring up this specific discussion. Korviday said, I'd rather not talk about it because like this person has made it clear that they don't want it to be talked about. And then Chud Logic, like essentially ruled that like, okay, we're not going to allow that to happen. So I've spoken to everyone involved. I don't hold it against Chud Logic because I think that he made, like, that's a hard thing to deal with if you don't like understand this full context, and he probably didn't. So like, it's a hard thing to it's like a hard judgment call in the moment. My first thought is just like on the merits of the argument, we should not talk about this because the person has made it clear that they don't want it to be talked about. Well, like first, the ship has already sort of sailed on have it being talked about in public, right? Like they sort of already made it an issue. Like they're literally the first people who made it an issue to be talked about in public. So if they want to like if they want to have it be discussed in public, but then also want to censor any discussion of that subject by people who they made dissent with, like that's literally, it's having your cake and eating it too. You can't have it both ways. So like that's my first sort of problem. Now, if you want to like omit their name, I think that's reasonable, and I think that that's something that you very well could have done in the moment. Like, okay, let's just agree to not like mention their name and move on from that, right? Like that's something that could have been a very easy remedy in that situation. The second thing, right, and this goes to more the optics aspect of it. From a strategy standpoint, like I sort of like look at what Korviday did in two aspects. I do not necessarily hold it against them for laser focusing on something. I've done that in debates myself. I've done that in like trials and in court, right? Where, there could be an entire universe of facts to deal with, but you generally speaking want to stick to your strongest arguments. And so like, that's like, you could play that off as strategy. The thing that I take more of a problem with is when you signal, like when you give a reasonable impression that you're going to talk about one thing and then you talk about another, right? Something that I'll never do when I talk with someone is I will never give the impression that I want to talk about X and then I bring someone on the stream and I debate them about Y and Z, right?
Yeah,
because
I should clarify too in my DMs with Chud. I don't blame Chud Logic. I think Chud Logic did what any. I obviously take my issue with the conclusion he came to, but I don't think Chud Logic was in bad faith. I think from his perspective, it was like, okay, someone has made a serious accusation and doesn't want to talk about on my stream. I don't know if I want to platform it, right? So from his perspective, not knowing anything about the drama, I don't think Chud Logic was like out to get me and like ambushing me or anything. I'm just frustrated because if Chud Logic knew the evidence, I feel like he wouldn't have did what he did. And I think Korviday was the one that was in bad faith because the girl that made the accusations doesn't care about it getting platformed. She didn't want me defending myself. And she admitted in her live stream that she was in contact with Korviday before the debate happened. So I feel like there might have been a little bit of I can't say for sure, but I get the feeling from what she said and then Korviday's actions, as well as his behavior on Twitter, that maybe there was a little bit of communication there, and maybe there was an intent to not allow me to defend myself on this topic.
That very well could have been the case. I will... Because mind you, again, like we've been talking a lot about sort of like the criticisms against Korviday. I don't want to make it out that I'm entirely critical because I think that there is a universe where I think that there's one of two reasonable conclusions at this point. I think it's entirely possible that they were acting in bad faith. That's entirely possible based on the evidence. I think that you certainly have like, we would call it like a prima facie case, which is just proving that there's like it's a reasonable possibility that is like what happened in this case, right? I think that there's also sort of like a strong prima facie case that Korviday may have been someone who sort of looked or like leapt before they looked, right? It's entirely possible that they're someone similar to Thought Slime. And again, like I'm not trying, like I cannot speculate. I don't know what was going through these people's minds. I am assuming them when I am like talking about like their possible mindsets. I assume people to be good faith actors, right? And so like assuming them to be good faith actors in the contrary to them not being, it's entirely possible that they were taking the perspective of I'm going to defend the victim, right? And that's first and foremost where I'm going. Like that is the first thing in my mind, and everything else I'm going to do follows from that. Because from what I can tell from seeing Korviday's tweets and Korviday's discussions on Twitter, it seems to be that they are very very distraught with the idea that this discussion has been like a discussion over like marginalized people or with marginalized people has been led in part by like a straight white guy. They've made like a lot of tweets to the effect that like they just like shitting on straight white debate bros, right? And I don't love that, but on one hand, I understand like the concern. I think that there are people who are concerned in the community that like discussions about marginalized people are being driven by people who fundamentally don't understand them. And I think that's like a reasonable fear to have, but I feel like that is overstepped when you start actually taking materially adverse actions, which have a chance of like substantively harming people who are objectively doing good work, right? Like, I haven't had any criticisms of your work aside from like some things we've already talked about, like the ableist rhetoric, but like, I don't know, you seem like you're doing good stuff and I want you to keep doing it. And otherwise, like, I don't mind, like I've told you before that I don't mind you like having a platform in this space. I see you as doing a lot of good work. So
I appreciate that. And I think of you, I think the same of you likewise as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And so when I see people, when I see someone's kind of taking this position, and unfortunately, like this also goes into, I had a conversation recently with a Vadim or Creationist Cat about like the use of the terminology of like the use of the term woke scold, right? On the one hand, like I understand like Korviday and other people's criticism that like this sounds very similar and it seems to be used very similar to like the SJW term back in 2016. Like I understand that concern, and I think if it's broadened too much and if we're not careful, it can certainly approach that point, right? On that same issue, I tend to be able to sympathize with you, especially like what, you know, considering what happened between like me and Essence of Thought. Like that is an instance where literally someone was trying to gatekeep me and you from like being able to engage in leftist discussion because we didn't adhere to like a high degree of quote unquote wokeness, right? Or like a certain identity or whatever you want to have, right? And in this sense, it's literally like a lot of criticism of someone just because like gatekeeping them from being able to lead leftist discussion because of like who you are.
Yeah, right? and they've engaged in both, and you were a victim of this a while ago with Essence of Thought, right? They've engaged in other dishonest tactics to try to kind of hurt you that are unrelated to their issue with you, right? So Essence of Thought went out of their way to keep saying, I'm your client over and over and over again, when you made it very clear that you don't have a law degree. I'm not your client. You don't give legal advice on your stream, like going out of your way because you don't want to get in trouble. And then they go out of their way to keep saying that over and over again. I mean, think can we safely say what their intentions were there?
I don't want to assume. And I mean, like for me, the biggest thing was that I asked them to take it down, and I know that they were able to see it because I know that they checked their tweets and that it was visible, and they didn't. Right. And they still haven't to this day, as far as I am aware. And I mean, the fact that they haven't shows me that regardless of whether or not they knew when they were going in that it was going to have a chance of harming me, the fact that they eventually were made aware of that and did not remedy what they had done by taking down their tweet kind of makes like it gives me a strong inclination of how they lean. And so when we're talking about like people generally and like using the term woke schools and possibly describing Korviday with that, again, like I don't want to paint people broadly because I feel like sometimes that leads to like overgeneralization, but there are certainly instances where I can see where people are coming from when you're using that descriptor, because like in this sense, again, like I want to be, because I don't want Korviday. I want to maintain this relationship. I'm trying my best to be impartial, but like on this argument, it certainly seems like you have a very reasonable take in using that descriptor.
Yeah, I don't know if I like the word woke scold that much because like I know its origin. I'm not like a linguistic absolutist. I think I was using I forgot what the other word was. Hold on, I'm getting rid of my blanket.
You're all good. You're all good.
It's getting into getting real late into the afternoon. The AC's having a hard time keeping up. I don't like the word woke scold. I think it's kind of nasty. But at the same time, I don't think this is scolding me for being not woke enough at this point. This is just hating me for whatever reason and then engaging in dishonest behavior to try to like harm my reputation. As a matter of fact, that
might be fair. That might very well be fair, right? But go on.
It's funny too, and I have more screenshots to back this up. Actually, a shit ton because I've been getting a lot of them. And I'll probably send them. I'd rather you didn't show them on stream though, because they show the not docs, but like the Discord name of somebody who does not want their identity public because they're involved with like they were in the server and they don't want to get harassment. Let's see. Damn, I had so many DMs where she messaged me this like yesterday. Or did she post it in... no, I think she posted it here. Never mind. Yeah, so it's funny because these same people who are like advocating for listening to the victim, right? Like, hey, listen to what this girl has to say, there's a lot on the line, are also blatantly ignoring what everybody else involved has said, specifically laser focusing and only believing the girl who made the accusations, which I think is funny because if I scroll up to, she sent me a she had an argument in another YouTuber named Tax Server, or AnarchoTac, an argument with Jamie, a person who's been, part of this like anti-breadtube thing, person who accused Peter Coffin of being like a pedo, had a big argument in Tax voice chat, or not voice chat, in his server. I found it in their server, and I don't recommend. I don't recommend showing this on stream, but this is a link. Actually, no, I don't, because I got express request from this girl not to send this out, so I'm actually not going to send you the
you can just describe me to the best you're able.
Yeah, she got into it, and I'm going to censor the names out of these, except for like those relevant, and publish these along with the videos, so you'll be able to see them eventually. She got into an argument with Jamie in the VC, or not the VC, in the chat, in which Jamie says, "Lamau, I don't care. You're probably just a pig puncher fan." To this girl who said, "I was in it. Like what you're saying is a lie right now." And just actively lying, or actively just like trying to ignore the testimony of another girl who is involved because they really want to believe the damning accusations towards me, because this person already like openly hates me. I actually talked to No Comment Chick on her stream the other day, and this person was in chat and like actively gaslighting me. Like we ended up talking about my childhood abuse, and then this person was in chat saying, "Boo hoo, poor piggy," and it was like, okay, this is all right. These are the people I'm talking about here. So these are the people that I've took issue with, and these seem to be the people that, while Korviday may not directly be in line with or directly be in engagement with, seems to fall within this community. This sort of like who I would call woke scolds back, right?
Yeah,
who are
we'll find
engaging
another
with
word. Yeah, we'll find another word eventually. But to objectively describe the same, like this type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a few accusations I actually wanted to go over because I have evidence to debunk all of them. These are the ones that you hear flying around on the internet, and if you want, I would just like to debunk some of them.
Yeah, go for it. Speed round.
All right. So they took down, these are claims that she's made or that I've seen on Twitter. They took down my AD so I could join the NSFW section. This is a TOS violation. So in my Discord server, my fan Discord, the public one, we have a not safe for work section where you can just horny post, right? But you have to be verified 18 plus. And we go nuclear with making sure you're verified 18 plus. A lot of servers don't even do this. We make sure you have to send a moderator or an admin your ID that has like a date of birth on it. Now you can censor out your name or your address or anything else. We just need your date of birth. We just need to make sure you're not 18. We just need to make sure you're 18 or older.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't let any minors in. We made 100% sure nobody could get in. So I don't know why she brings this up as like a damning bit of evidence. It's not against TOS. It's literally just like the nuclear option in regards to ensuring everyone who's doing anything NSFW in my server, in like my fan Discord, is 18 or up. So they're like consenting adults doing whatever in there. Xanderhal started and so this girl started posting in the like nudes in the NSFW section, and this is basically where this comes from. Xanderhal started complimenting the pictures I posted in the NSFW section, and even though I wasn't attracted to him, I was flattered that a YouTuber I was a fan of liked these pictures. So this is like the biggest and most damning accusation towards me, because if she was a fan, this would be pretty problematic, because she was like, "Oh man, a YouTuber that I'm a fan of is liking my pictures," and that would be like really like manipulative and bad. But the idea that she was a fan of me and that I was engaging in sexual behavior with her just isn't true. Like there's quite a bit of evidence against the idea that she was a fan of me. She'd never shown up in a single live stream. She hadn't commented on a single video, and she hadn't really been active in my Discord server until we became friends. On top of that, the first live stream that she actually ever got into was after I became friends with her and was like friends with her for like a week, and she hadn't even made an account on my website until April 6th, which was well over a week into our friendship. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and send you a screenshot. I guess this would be easy for me to fake on my end, I'll admit, because it's from my website, but I mean, you'll have to take my word for it, I guess.
right.
Here is
I'll
a
just-
screenshot.
Yeah, the way I handle this sort of evidence is that it's more a matter of weight, not like this is the way that they would say in the law. It's a matter of weight and not admissibility. I'll show it to my stream, and they can do with it what they will.
Yeah, so this is her her account on the website was called Based Spooky, and you can see it's still active. She hasn't like been banned or deleted. And this was her date of creation, April 6th, 2020.
Okay.
Spooky was already taken, so she had to go with Based Spooky. Yeah, so I don't believe that she was a fan of me. Also, she didn't behave like a fan of me in voice chat. There's a reason why I don't befriend fans, because generally they act in ways that are just not conducive with having like a friendship. There are very few people who were fans of me that I've not gone on to become friends with. And it was usually because like I'd be super fucking bored. I'd be like, yo, does anyone play WoW? And then we would spend hours and hours and hours and hours in a voice chat playing WoW and like leveling together and talking before I would like consider them a friend, before like our relationship went from being like parasocial to like just a normal friendship, right? And you know, I'm friends with some of those people to this day, right? Like Emily, who is probably one of my closest friends these days and is one of the main admins of my server, started out finding my content. We started talking in Destiny's server, and now we've been friends for over a year, and she's one of my best friends.
Sure.
Also, I distinctly remember, and when you see the video, you'll be able to hear this from everybody else involved. We distinctly remember a time that we were all in VC, and she mentioned that she had just actually started watching one of my videos and thought they were pretty good. So, and this was well into our friendship. So, I don't know about the. We don't have screenshots of it because it was said in VC, but I mean, it's me and 4 other people saying this against her. So, don't think she was a fan of me.
Okay.
Just doesn't seem to be the case. And yeah, by compliments on like the nude she was posting in NSFW, it would literally, unironically, be me saying poggers. Just, yeah, okay. Yeah, I would just respond.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't know if like, here, I can actually, because it's my #1 most used emote. There it is, right there in the DMs. Poggers. So,
wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that like I'm gonna take a hard guess. I'm not sure if people can see this. I'll try and get it on screen. Yeah, on stream. I imagine just because of the overlap of our audiences that most people probably get what that reference is. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on. Yeah.
So here's another big claim that I've seen. Xanderhal asked to be invited to Spooky's server after seeing her nudes. Not true at all. Everybody else involved will also be debunking this. She invited literally all of us to her server. She asked me to join it, and whenever I was in the server, she would actively request, like do a big @ everyone or an @ here whenever she was like in VC and bored to get everybody to join the voice chat and talk to her, which is where like we did a lot of talking in her server. Because she would like @ everyone and be bored, and so I'd get in and I'd start talking to her, and I'd play like Metal Gear Solid 5 because that's what I was playing at the time, and we would talk. So it was pretty good. So yeah, no, this is just a blatant lie. She asked me to join. She's the one who I didn't even know the server existed until she asked me to join it.
Okay.
This is a big claim too. He promised me a place to live with him and his girlfriend.
Sure.
And he had me get vetted with her before joining the Harem. He said he was serious too. Yeah, this is a claim she's been putting out there. So what actually happened was around this time, this is when coronavirus wasn't quite as bad, right? Me and my girlfriend were thinking about getting a place, and we had 2 options. An apartment in California, because this is as much as I could afford at the time, an apartment in California, or a nice place in Florida, because, you know, expenses are lower in Florida.
Sure.
Now, the idea of her living with me never came up. And the idea of visiting one day came up because we were friends, and, you know, I offer the idea of visiting all the time to friends, but we never made like any concrete concrete plans. And as for like the vetting with my girlfriend, literally everybody that was in my girlfriend was in the friend group. At this point, we've been dating for 8 months, right?
Yeah.
My girlfriend was literally in the friend group. Of course, she had to approve of it as well, because there was an NSFW section. And if I was going to flirt with that, if I was going to platonically, like in the non-romantic sense, just sexual sense, flirt with any of them, or they were going to even be in the group in the first place, everyone had to be cool with it. Those are the rules. If we were going to add a new friend to the group, we all had to know them. We all had to be chill. And we all had to agree unanimously on having them in there because it was an NSFW section. We couldn't have anybody in there that we weren't cool with. Like, yeah.
Right.
So this idea that I like had my girlfriend vet them is just, yeah, I don't know. I did used to joke, because the harem has been an on-running joke on my channel for a long time, well before this thing happened. I would joke, yeah, if you want to join the harem, send my girlfriend an application, and then they would go to Instagram and unironically DM my girlfriend, like, hey, can I join the harem? And my girlfriend would be like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is just her kind of lying. I don't think this could be her misunderstanding stuff, but like this is not what happened.
Like, I mean, it seems like, again, like I usually take on good faith interpretations. I could see like a reasonable misinterpretation of like talking to everyone and making sure everyone is cool as like being vetted, right? Like I could see that as being like a reasonable way to misconstrue the intent of certain actions, right? Now based on the totality of the evidence, does it seem as likely that that's what she actually believed? Probably not. It seems like there's like enough evidence that you present to me so far that I think it's pretty reasonable to say that like her moral character, her trustworthiness as a character's trait can be called into question. Again, like I leave that to my audience to really decide on their own. I'm just here to say kind of like what I think is a reasonable interpretation. And it seems reasonable to think that she wasn't being entirely truthful. So, you know, as we're going forward and she's making a lot of these claims, like it's good that you're providing evidence. It definitely helps your claims and, you know, you're being able to respond to her. But generally speaking, I'm inclined at this point to agree with you pending further evidence.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The next claim I've heard a lot from her was that it was extremely vague. I knew all the other women weren't ready. Explicitly, she said ready over and over again for a relationship, as though like she expected one in the future, like there was one coming, but it wasn't clear enough. And all I respond to with that is 2 screenshots, and I was asleep when this happened, but they managed to dig up these screenshots of an interaction between them. I can't send it to you because I haven't censored any of the names.
Okay.
But it was basically here, let me just give a few quotes, though.
Yeah,
so
go
one
for
of them
it.
says, I wouldn't consider it a relationship at all, honestly. I'm not interested in long-distance relationships with people I've never met in person. I also have my own life outside of Discord. The way I see this is that we're all just hanging out and chatting and stuff, but there's an NSFW section. That's how my understanding of things is, at least. And then another one said, yeah, unless I plan on meeting up with any of you, I wouldn't call it a relationship. And then Spooky, the girl who's done these accusations, her response to this, and if I had seen this, because I didn't see this interaction when it happened, I didn't see this until after the drama started and we were getting screenshots to debunk these things. If I'd seen this would have been a big red flag.
Sure.
She said, why are tears randomly coming down my face? I'm not even sad. That was her response to those.
All right. That's weird and random, and I don't see how that. Yeah, go on though.
That was her response to them saying that it's not a relationship, like explicitly saying I'm not dating any, like this isn't a relationship.
So that's her saying that she's crying, but she's not actually sad or beat up over it.
Yeah, but I don't know how to interpret. Why are tears randomly coming down my face?
Yeah,
I'm not even sad.
It's a lot of mixed signals, and it's very hard to take like it's hard to get an accurate read on what they believe in that moment.
Yeah, it's really hard to like know, but this is her actively acknowledging that multiple people said this is not a relationship. This is just a group chat. We're just friends.
Yeah,
it has an NSFW section. Here's one that's been like really damning for me. He would beg for nudes, beg for boob pics constantly. He wasn't subtle about it. This is a blatant lie. So literally everyone involved is going to call her out for this one because she was notorious for being unbelievably insistent on trying to get me to post nudes. Not in a way that made me uncomfortable necessarily, even though I said no a lot. I was like, the deal was, if she wanted me to post any nudes, I had to get a Valorant key. For the game Valorant. It's a popular game by Riot. And the way that you would get it is you'd have to stay in like Twitch streams of people playing Valorant, and you'd have a chance of a key dropping, and you would get the game. And I eventually did get one, so I did eventually post nudes, but they're gone now, so nobody in chat, don't get excited. But ironically enough, I would never beg for nudes from her because she posted them daily. Like it was like clockwork almost. Like I would wake up around this time, around like 5 p.m., and I would go to my computer, and she would have posted like 3 things in the NSFW section of every server she's in. She would post it in my server, she would post it in the Harem server, she posted it in her server, and from what I've been told, she would post them in the NSFW sections of other servers as well. They weren't like unique to this server. She posted them so much that there would never been an instance where I needed to ask. The most that might have ever happened would I would facetiously say, booby? In the same way that I would like type poggers after she did type something. Like it was always like one word things, and it was like twice. ironically enough, everyone else could back this up. She's the one that was begging for me to post nudes. And she literally like, yeah. So I have screenshots of this as well. Cannot post them because you know, I need to censor names, but I can just say some of the things that I can read off some of the things that were said.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm interested in seeing it, but I'm not spooky levels of interested. Haha. Stop stalling. I don't care. Just send. Is spooky cooming already? Lamau. What else? These are from Spooky. It's all mine, my, then cummies, but with an X at the beginning, referencing me. So
sure.
This gives me the impression that maybe I wasn't begging for nudes, maybe she was. Also, everyone else was there, so they're gonna back that up. Yeah.
It's really interesting, and I mean, I think that you've given me enough evidence for me to be. I mean, like, I want to tie this back into the original sort of discussion about, like, so the debate between you and Korviday, right? About how all of these like, it seems like a lot of these claims sort of, like, they were an issue in and of their own right, that people were, you know, that there was someone or people spreading misinformation around you, right? Like, that's obviously an issue. It's hard, and especially when you are a person with a large platform, and that can, you know, go to harm, you know, your platform and how people see you, right? Like, obviously that's an issue in its own right. It's hard when other people sort of amplify that, when you have other, like, larger content creators who go and amplify that. And so for me, hearing all this, and I'm glad that you were able to provide me with sort of this context and this evidence, because, like, I think that a lot of people, like, this seems like something with, like, a lot of very specific facts and a lot of circumstances that are not going to be available to the average person, right? Like, this is a lot of context that is not going to be able. So I'm really looking forward to your video coming out. I'm really looking forward to that coming out and being able to just, like, have all of that sort of, like, laid out very concretely, very just, like, you know, kind of put this to rest. Because when you're talking about the difference, and again, like, for the debate between you and Korviday, it is sort of unfortunate that you all weren't able to talk about this, because it seems like, and I want to be sure. So Korviday, as we were talking about, like, this was sort of like the thing. This was sort of the thing that started the drama between you and Korviday, was, like, around this harem sex cult allegations, right? Like, that's sort of what
defensive thought slime,
yeah. Like, if that's sort of what started things between you two, and you eventually had a debate, then I don't see it to be unreasonable to expect that that would be a major topic of discussion, and for that to sort of just be left off the table completely, and then focus in on something, which, mind you, like, and again, like, here I'm sort of playing both sides in that, like, you know, we've already talked about, like, Korviday's arguments about, like, the ableism language. I feel like we've sort of put that to rest. I think we can move on from that. And
I should say, regardless of Korviday's intentions, the ableism arguments I thought were pretty good. I'm somebody who likes to pride myself on being right. Even though I think he was in bad faith, he still made good points. So, you know, I came out of that debate a better person, even if I wish I had, like, really, though I wish I had done things differently and maybe insisted on talking about his claims towards me. I'll talk to ChedLogic about it, or I'll have ChedLogic watch the video. But I feel like if ChedLogic knows the actual context and knows, like, what happened, he'll be like, "Oh, sorry about that. Like, I didn't know. I just thought that this was very different."
Sure. And specifically, how Korviday seems, I mean, like, has gotten, I mean, very, like, it's kind of crazy for me, right? Because I've always known Korviday as sort of like this super chill, level-headed kind of person on Twitter, and it seems like they've taken, like, a very different turn. And they've been sort of prideful in that, you know, they have made it out to be that they have been able to speak up more, and they see it that they've been able to sort of create more confidence in other people to be able to speak up. And I think that, like, on one hand, I want to be able to, you know, advocate for people to be able to speak up, to be able to, you know, be able to defend themselves and other people. Like, I'm always for that. I want to make sure that we're always creating more opportunity for discussion and constructive criticism than less, right? But I also want to make sure that we're doing so in a way which is actually, like, genuinely constructive, right? Not to say that people have to, like, engage in respectability politics, but when you are trying to actually instill, like, when you're actually trying to get, like, genuine change out of someone who you want, like, who is sharing your community, right? When you're trying to get, like, a genuine change in perspective or content or rhetoric or what have you, right? It's always better to try and approach it from, like, a perspective of good faith, to not, like, insult them, or if you're going to insult them, like, do so sparingly, right? It generally does not help your case. And and to come from a position of, hey, you know, we're disagreeing on this, but like fundamentally we share the same goals. I just want to make sure that we're sharing the same means of achieving those goals.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, my main issue is just that I feel like there's a lot of people who dislike me for a variety of reasons.
Sure.
Maybe it's because they take issue with, you know, my rhetoric being problematic and whatnot, and then they're willing to go after me on things like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's really what's upset me about the Korviday situation particularly, right? And why I don't think Korviday is in good faith, because even after hearing all this evidence, he was still in chat saying, I don't care, and then left once the evidence started to mount up to a point where he couldn't reasonably continue to believe this girl's accusations and defend his actions, right? And also, I know that they're like, I think in cahoots would be a bit far, but I mean, she admitted that they've been in DMs and they've been talking, so I get the feeling that
I won't speculate, but I can see why you would definitely think that.
Yeah.
Again, like this is hard because where I want, like, the thing that I want to come from this, right? Because now I've sort of talked with you, and I feel like this has been a very constructive conversation. I would still like, again, like if Korviday ever watches this, I'm totally open to talking with them and to sort of like getting this, like, I want this to be constructive. I want this to be a constructive conversation. And so to the extent, I feel like the logistic want, like the, you know, the requests, you could say, from Korviday, like asking you to change your rhetoric and like to be more considerate of like how your rhetoric affects people. Like, I mean, they sort of got that, right? Like, it seems like they were successful in that front. And so like, I don't really see any outstanding issues on like what they could ask from you. Right. I see it more at this point, like the ball is sort of in their court, that, you know, it seems like they have, you know, to a decent extent, based on the evidence that you've shown me, been at least complicit in misrepresentation of everything that we have talked about. And I'm not sure if an apology is the right solution. I'm not sure if just backing off is the right solution. I'm not sure if having more discussion is the right solution. Right. But it is important to just kind of recognize that, like, it seems like, at least to some extent, they were probably, and again, like, I'm trying to be constructive, like at Korviday, if you're watching this, like I'm just trying to approach this from the perspective of creating unity, or at least some solidarity, or, you know, whatever. It seems like you may have been complicit in some misrepresentation, and that's not cool, you know? And I wouldn't ask, and I don't know like what you think of Xanderhal personally, but, you know, I wouldn't ask that you treat any other leftist content creator like that. So that's sort of my thoughts on it, at least based on this conversation.
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. At the end of the day, I'm just excited to get this video out. I'm gonna try to get it out to as many people as possible. I'm going to be probably all day going to be censoring like up to 100 screenshots, because I have to censor out names and stuff like that. I want to keep it as like little edited as possible, because, you know, it kind of looks suspicious if they're like edited a lot, and people might nitpick at that. But there's people who don't want their names seen, and then obviously. Can we finish it off with a good meme, a pretty good meme of an accusation that happened?
Go for it.
This is probably the funniest one because of how it actually went. It sounds bad when you hear the accusation, but the explanation makes it sound a lot better. Xan posted a dick pic and made it into an emote in the server. Not only did I not make it into an emote, not only was I not even capable of adding emotes to the server, but obviously, you know, Spooky herself had asked extensively to see that. It was the owner of the server, who I will not name, that made it into an emote. And then Spooky herself was the one who spammed it constantly. And I have screenshots that I did censor. So if you want to see her spamming it, completely censored and safe for
I'll take you at your word and let you you talk about that in your video. I'll take you at your word.
Yeah. I'll be showing the censored thing on screen. But yeah, it's the funniest thing too, because like the way it's been warped is like Xanderhal made his dick into an emote so he could easily send it to fans, and it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense on several levels. Oh god, this drama. I'm so excited to put this drama to bed, because it's been really, really it's been stressful for everyone involved, including myself, and people who take other issues with me have been like hinting about it or taking jabs at me about it. And then then whenever I get them on stream, they pull the, ooh, I don't want to talk about it. I don't really know if I want to platform that discussion, for respect out of the person making the accusation. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just feels good to talk to you about it, because I was worried that because you definitely didn't have this information, and so I'm glad I was able to sort of enlighten you on what actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, whenever I see drama like this, or especially serious allegations, I generally suspend my judgment until evidence begins to reveal itself, right? Like I always try to take, as level-headed and as, objective as an approach as I can, right? Because I don't want to just like take someone's sides just because I like them. And I hope that doesn't mean someday that you end up on the wrong side of it and I end up like disliking something. Well, I mean, like, I've actually criticized you. I shouldn't say that, because like I've criticized you several times before and like it's gone over fine between us, so actually I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, like whenever something like this comes up, I do try to be as level-headed as I can. So no, it's totally fine. Thank you for sharing all the evidence with me. For me and how I think through these things, it made me feel a lot better.
Yeah, well, I had a fun time talking to you, and I think you're probably one of the most reasonable people I've talked to, and your criticisms have always been, like, I've always liked your videos and recommended your videos where you critique me to my fans and stuff like that, because I think that you do good work and your videos are constructive and in good faith. Yeah.
All right, well, hey.
When do you want to play some Sea of Thieves, like we planned?
Yeah. Hey, listen, let's set it up. We'll do it either. I mean, we'll plan for it like within the next couple weeks, right? Like we'll make it happen. All right. I'll just message you. I've just been busy lately. I literally started up 2 jobs this week. I started up one doing a research job for a dean at the law school, and the other, it's super cool and I love talking about it, but I can't talk about specifics. I'm working for the organized crime division of the Maryland Attorney General's office. So like that's super fun. Like I'm literally working on like conspiracy cases, right? Like it's the coolest shit. But yeah, so that's been eating up a lot of my time this week. But yeah, we'll make it happen. All right.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm excited. I usually do like just gaming streams like around 5 p.m. Most streams that I do.
That's perfect.
Because I like to space out my politics streams. So if you ever just like see I'm live playing, I might play Sea of Thieves or something, and say, hey, you want to play some Sea of Thieves? I'll bring you in. We can play some.
Yeah, sounds great to me. All right. Well, hey, thank you for coming on. It's been a really good talk.
Alrighty. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
That was a good chat.